re-adjourn from our closed session. Welcome to this public meeting of the Princeton Board of Education. Our mission is to prepare all of our students to lead lives of joy and purpose as knowledgeable, creative, and compassionate citizens of a global society. The board is an elected, unpaid group of 10 citizens who set policy and make decisions on educational, financial, and personnel matters for the Princeton Public Schools on behalf of all residents. We are always pleased when members of the community attend our meetings. The board and the school district operate under applicable New Jersey laws and under regulations of the New Jersey State Board of Education. Each meeting includes an opportunity for those attending to comment on items on the published agenda or other matters of interest to them. The board reserves the right to limit the time allotted to public participation. Law limits discussion of individual personnel and confidential matters. We desire that our meetings provide useful opportunities for communication between the board and the community. Thank you for attending. I would ask that the board secretary now read the required notices and call the roll.
As required under the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 1046 et sequentia, adequate notice was given for the calling of this meeting. It was authorized by the Board of Education and forwarded to the municipal clerk, Princeton Packet, and the Times on
On January 10th.
on January 10th, 2019, and distributed to the schools and others on the standard distribution list. Board Policy 2230, recording devices, requires that we inform those attending this meeting that the proceedings are being recorded on video. This meeting is being video recorded and may also be live streamed. The representative of the sending district is authorized to vote on such matters that affect sending district students or affect the governance of the Princeton Public Schools, as more specifically designated in NJSA 18A 38.8.1. In the event that NJSA 18A38.1 is amended, the law shall take precedence over this bylaw. Sending district votes pertaining to personnel actions refer to high school, central administration, and district-wide staff only. Votes otherwise are considered abstentions. We'll take a roll call. It should be up on the screen, correct? I started it. Hey, Gabe.
While we're waiting for the technology to work, this might be a good time to officially welcome
Yes.
Matt Bolden on. This is his very first day with us in the Princeton Public Schools, officially in the capacity of business administrator and board secretary. So this is his first board meeting. I also want to take the opportunity to thank Tom, who was our interim business administrator and will continue to mentor and guide Matt as he transitions into our district.
And this is not Matt's first meeting, it's his third board
It
meeting
is
of
his
the
third
day.
board, but just his official
I was
paid
just going to say,
meeting.
he's been with us all day, and we hope he comes back.
But Matt, thank you.
You ready?
Well, it's not coming up. Why don't I just take the roll
Sure.
call? We'll get this going, and we'll figure out the
Okay.
technological aspects as we get going here. Beth Barron.
Here.
Greg Stankiewicz.
Here.
Betsy Caliber Baglio. Absent. Debbie Bronfeld.
Here.
Daniel Dart. Jessica Deutsch.
Here.
Bill Hare.
Here.
Brian McDonald.
Present.
Michelle Tuck Ponder.
Present.
Evelyn Spahn. We have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is the adoption of minutes from the July 16th, 2019 meeting. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Brian? A second? Jess? Any discussion? All those in favor, please show of hands. There's 6 of us.
Yeah, I have to abstain. I
And-
wasn't here.
Yep. Debbie was not here.
Hmm?
So 6 in favor, 1 abstention. The second item is our affirmation of an HIB case. Could I have a motion? Brian, second? Greg? Any discussion? So resolved that the Board of Education affirm the superintendent's recommendation regarding HIB case number 2020-22-06032019 after conducting a parent hearing to appeal the superintendent's recommendation at the July 16, 2019 board meeting in executive session. Can I have a show of hands for those who are in favor of this resolution, which would affirm the superintendent's recommendation?
So we have
Show of hands.
2 abstentions.
We have 2
Right.
abstentions.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to my report. So, welcome to the August 2019 regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Princeton Public Schools. We appreciate your joining us in the dog days of summer as we continue to move forward with our work on behalf of the students of the Princeton Public Schools. We hope that our students, staff, and administrators have found time to reconnect and take time out with family and friends over the summer. I'd also like to give another big welcome to our new business administrator and board secretary, Matt Bolden, who's joining us tonight on his first day with the district. And we do hope he'll come back after the 3 very eventful meetings that we've already had today.
I'll be back.
While we don't need outside surveys to know that we offer an outstanding education to our students, I would be remiss not to note the recent niche rating of the PPS, Princeton Public Schools, as the #1 school district in New Jersey and among the top districts in the nation. This is thanks to the extraordinary commitment of our staff and administrators and the hard work and engagement of our students. I just want to mention that there's many surveys, and obviously we appear in many different places, but when we get one that puts us on top, I think we need to mention it. And we thank you, Superintendent Cochran, for all of your work, which has helped us be in the place that we are. Tonight we are going to have the opportunity to discuss how we will continue to improve the educational experience we offer our students, and we will be focusing on our goals for the next year, which we will approve at our next meeting. So tonight, we're going to have a nice discussion, I hope, of our superintendent's goals, of the district goals, and our board goals, which will support all of that work. And I'm going to keep it brief because I think that's going to be a very exciting discussion. I'd just like to say we have continued to be busy over the summer, and you will hear that in our committee reports. And we are continuing to collaborate and looking forward to the fall, where we will move ahead with many other matters that have been ongoing. We will continue to be working with the municipality, with Princeton University, with the charter school, with our community partners, with Sustainable Princeton. We have meetings set up with all of them and look forward to continuing our relationships and to develop closer collaboration and to share the work on all the challenges that we face together. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Superintendent Cochran.
Thank you, Ms. Marin. If you want to pull up my report, Gabe. So my first message, our kids are coming. And as I shared in my welcome back letter to our staff, they're coming with their backpacks and their binders and their hopes and their dreams and their unique experiences, perspectives, and potential. And we are here, all of us, to welcome them. I really want to thank our staff for all the work that they have been doing to prepare for the arrival of our students. We're going to hear tonight a little bit about the preparation that our teachers and administrators have been doing to prepare for students to write new curriculum and to hone their skills as teachers. I see our Director of Facilities, Dave Harding, in the back, and his people, his custodians, his grounds crew have been working tirelessly. Our secretaries, our bus drivers, all in an effort to prepare for the arrival of our students. And we have, at this point, as of today, 3,865 students who will be coming to us on September 4th. That number will go up because we're registering new students every day. We are up about 40 students over where we were last year on the first day of school. So I'm sure that number will continue to rise a bit. Our high points in enrollment, we have, I think now 402 students at Littlebrook. I see Martha back there, and So yes, it's 402 is a high point for our elementary school, 785 at JW right now, and just over 1,600 at the high school. So we're continuing to grow. So as we think through the goals and as we begin our year, I think it's important to really highlight the backdrop for all of our goals. And that has to do first with our mission. Beth read that at the start of this meeting, as we read at the start of every meeting, so I'm not going to reread it here, but I will share with the group that when we had our orientation for our new teachers in this room last week, I think, Mike, you were leading that, and I asked them to read a copy of the mission statement and to underline key words that stood out for them. And then we all read it in unison, and the words that they underlined, they joined in reading those words. And the words that stood out clearly, more than any others, all, joy and purpose. All students, lives of joy and purpose. And that really is our mission. And the values that back that up, we have these hanging throughout our school district. And it's not a bad idea to reaffirm our values as we begin our school year. So our schools are places of partnership, where educators work closely with one another, where relationships with families are forged, and where collaborations with individuals and organizations across our community and throughout the world support the highest levels of teaching and learning. Our schools are places of innovation, where curiosity is sparked, risk-taking is encouraged, and where problems are viewed as opportunities for deeper understanding and creative solutions. Our schools are places of care, where every child is known, every culture valued, and where kindness and courage are modeled. So our goals, our strategic planning goals, grow out of the mission statement and the values. These 5 goals should be very familiar to those in our district. They've been part of our strategic plan for the past 4 years. Every child known, wellness and balance for students and staff, closing the achievement gap, innovation, communication, care, and connectedness. The through lines that connect all of those goals we've identified as differentiated instruction, culturally responsive teaching. Keep those through lines in mind because they will, you'll hear about them as we talk about our professional development for our teachers, and you'll hear about them as we talk about the goals for the superintendent and for the board and the district. Our overarching goal, equity, ensuring that every child achieves their highest potential, recognizing that there are multiple pathways to success. And our theme for this coming year, knowing every child, supporting them together. So we talk about knowing every child as a learner and as a person. And yet the theme really, I think, for us as a district and as a community is about collaboration, is about the way that we do that together. So our students experience us collectively. They come from home to school. In their days at school, they may move from subject to subject, from teacher to teacher, from activity to activity. They may move out into the community. So we are collectively supporting our students, and collectively we each have an understanding of who they are. And so our focus really is on team and collaboration, and that will be a theme that you will hear as we talk through our goals tonight. So last meeting in July, we talked a lot about the many enrichment activities we had going on this summer for our students. And we had more than 500 students who participated in a whole variety of enrichment experiences. But we have staff who also use the summer. And I wanted to give Annie Kosek, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, and Marijela Bajaj, who is our Supervisor for Professional Development and Assessment, who've been instrumental in creating the professional development experiences, often teaching some of those professional development experiences, just an opportunity to share with the board and with the public the kinds of work that our teachers have engaged in this summer. So Annie and Ridgela, if you would mind just sharing a little bit. Yep.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're going to talk to you a little bit about professional development in Princeton Public Schools. Next one. So why is professional development important to a school district? Professional development is a strategy that a school district uses to support its teachers. We hire teachers because of their exceptional experience or because of promising potential. And we want them to strengthen their practice over time through their career and throughout their tenure with us. It is so important that we focus on the needs of today's students who will be tomorrow's adults. Not yesterday's children, not yesterday's lesson plans, not yesterday's methods. We need to strengthen the tried and true strategies of teaching, and regardless of where we are in our years of experience, we need to stay current with high impact practices that bolster what we know to be effective teaching today. So we want every teacher in Princeton, every educator, to be a successful teacher of our children. Professional development is an essential to that aim. For the last 3 years, we have made it a priority in a number of ways, and we see the benefits of that in our schools and classrooms every day. You, as a board, have supported it. You've supported a strategic plan that engages all of us in learning and growing together as a district. You've hired a supervisor of professional development and assessment who has helped us immensely to stay focused on our goals in an organized and a meaningful way. You've provided funding for our staff to teach their colleagues and for all PREA members to attend classes in the summer. And you've recognized that professional development is just not a tick box exercise, but it's one that requires thoughtful needs assessment and appropriate response approach, measured over time and measured in our classrooms. Our full PD program is multi-pronged. We have, as you see on the screen, 4 full days of PD built into our calendar. We have 3 half days built in, and we use these days to address training and planning needs related to new initiatives, new programs, to department needs, department initiatives. We have a Flex PD program that allows teachers to attend workshops and seminars after school in exchange for the last PD day of the year. And these are taught by their colleagues, and they are on topics that teachers have requested. We look at every evaluation that teachers give us on each of our professional development workshops, and we use those to plan for the future. And another thing that we do, the next one, is to provide a summer institute. We offer 40 or more opportunities a year for staff to participate in learning and reflecting and collaborating with their colleagues on key topics. Ridgela Bajaj is here. She is our Supervisor of Professional Development and Assessment, and she's going to share with you the facts and figures about this last prong, the Summer Institute. It is now in its 3rd year, but her work over these last 1.5 years that she's been with us has really elevated these programs. And I am very proud for her to be here tonight with me, and we're both very proud of the Summer Institute that we have developed over the years. Angela?
Thank you, Annie. I'd like to start off by thanking all of you and Superintendent Cochran and Annie Kosick for the tremendous, support that they have given me and the leeway that they have given me to, also explore my ideas about professional development. So thank you, all of you. Our summer institute is, we had our third year this year. When I joined, Princeton Public Schools had just completed their first year of the summer institute. When I joined Princeton Public Schools and I learned about this, I was very excited because PD has been one of my passions, providing meaningful professional development to my peers. As a teacher, I was always interested in learning new things. And as an administrator, I'm still interested in learning new things. And one of the things as a teacher, when the principal asked for volunteers to be part of the PD team, I was one of the people who volunteered, and it was the most awesome experience. So when this opportunity came, I absolutely wanted to work in this capacity, and I'm happy to be here. So going back to the Summer Institute, first year, when I joined, I heard it was a great success. I heard only good things. So my last year, which was my first year, was a learning experience for me. And every PD day that we have done over here, Annie and I, we worked very closely to keep refining the process and making it better. Of course, with the help of our teacher colleagues, their feedback has been very important to help us refine the whole process. So this year, we asked for proposals from the staff, and we got an overwhelming response. We looked at all the proposals, we evaluated them, and 48 courses were selected to be offered during the summer. And even though the courses are 48, there were actually 54 sessions which ran, because some of those courses were offered in multiple sessions. These courses were organized according to the key strands in our strategic action plan. And the 5 strands are equity, cultural responsive teaching. There were 8 courses in that category. Social emotional learning, 5 courses. Instructional strategies, there were 22 courses. Technology and innovation, 11. And cross-curricular arts integration, 2. That last one is something I hold very dear to my heart, because I firmly believe in cross-curricular integration across the disciplines. And that is something I'm working closely with our visual and performing arts supervisor, Patrick Lenihan, to grow that last strand. After every PD session, we send out a feedback survey requesting teachers for their feedback, because like I said earlier, our aim is to keep refining the process and making it a better experience for all stakeholders. We also sent out a needs assessment survey, and one thing that jumped out at us was teachers requesting more support in the special ed topics. We listened, we heard, we planned, and we recruited our talented staff in the district to run a PD on topics which had a special ed focus. So this summer, these were the 11 courses that ran, especially as a support for the general education teachers on the special ed topics. We have so much talent in the district. We really didn't need much in terms of external support. So except for those last 3 names at the bottom, those 3 external consultants that we had, all the other presenters were in-house, and we are very fortunate to have our leaders who not only believe in professional development, but lead by example. So both Steve and Annie also presented workshops this summer, as last summer also. We had principals, supervisors, and of course 40 teachers who led those sessions. There were 213 teachers. I shouldn't say teachers, I should say all faculty, because that included teachers, instructional assistants, administrators who attended these workshops. And because people attended multiple workshops, and of course they are welcome to attend all, there were 641 spots that were availed. So it was a pretty good turnout. We started on July 2nd, and our last workshop was Friday, August 23rd. So it's been a busy summer. And like we said earlier, at the end of every session, send out a feedback survey. And as of last night, I had received 365 responses. Every day in the morning, that's the first thing I do when I get here in my office. I open the feedback and I read every response and make a note of what the feedback is, what the requirements are, what we need to do to improve, so that we can take care of that for the next time to the best of our ability. So some of the questions, these are the responses to the questions that we posed in the survey. As you can see, about 91% of our faculty approved and said that the workshop met the stated objectives. Facilitator expertise, again, you can see overwhelmingly, it was in favor of the presenters. Relevance of topics presented. Annie asked me when she looked at this graph, is this true? I said, I did not manipulate it. This is the data. And the graphs were generated by the Google form, so I did not manipulate it. This is what it is. Quality of resources. So, and these were some of the, statements we got. We call them bouquets. And as you can see, one of the things is make it a full day, more time, continue, build on this. I want a second session, which is also what they said in the needs improvement, more time, more time, more time. Level 2 session, more dedicated time throughout the year. More time with the presenters, more resources. So I think we did a good job this summer. Thanks to the teachers we have over here.
Yes, yeah. One of our goals was to really tap the expertise of the staff, and I think we're doing a better and better job of that each year. More and more people step up and want to offer courses and want to share their expertise, and that's been a really very rewarding for Marigela and me to see. I have one more thing I'd like to share with you. Can you just, oh. Oh, sorry, it's already up on the screen. Additional work that we've done this summer is a lot of curriculum writing. So our staff, our teachers have been involved deeply in writing curriculum this summer. So I just wanted to share with you some of what has been done. We've taken 14 curriculum and fully revised them. 26 went through partial revisions, and then 4 brand new courses were created. Middle school dance, and then at the high school, multimedia special effects, planetary science, and public speaking. Those are brand new courses that are now in our system. So we did a lot more this summer than typical because we did a thorough review over the course of last year to see where we had gaps in our curriculum and where we needed to revisit and update. And so we spent a good deal of time doing that as well. So it's been a very busy summer for our staff, for our admin as well, in terms of all the professional development, curriculum writing, and we just are off to a great start tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
We can clap for that. Annie, Marigela, thank you so much. We always say teachers are their own greatest resource, and you demonstrated it with the quality of the professional development that you arranged this summer. And I know tomorrow we have a full day of professional development. I think there are more than 20 workshops that are being offered tomorrow as well, and I know you're teaching a number of them, Annie. So, and Marigela, you're probably involved in teaching some as well. I know you are. So if you need to leave, I do understand. Any questions from the board or comments about?
I have one question. Do we record the sessions?
Do we
Annie,
record?
do we record professional development in the event somebody wanted to watch one after the fact?
We have not done that yet, but that's a great idea. Actually, I think we had one teacher who played with that, correct, Marangela? She recorded a session with some teachers she worked with. But that was just one. But that is something we could think about doing.
This is not really a question, just more of a comment. But in the 3 years I've been serving here, I've been impressed by so many things. But one of the things I've been impressed with the most is the quality of the professional development here in the district, and the fact that we use our own teachers, our own staff. It's in-house, it's innovative, it's transformational, and it's I think, a real model for other districts. And so I just want to thank both of you and thank everyone else involved. I know it's been a lot of hard work over the summer, a lot of hard work over the year, but it helps make Princeton what Princeton is. And so thank you to both of you.
Okay. All right. So moving along, this July 9th, I believe, was when the board and I got together. And we had a full day discussion about our goals for the district. And the document that we came out of that is posted on board docs, and you could use that as a framework for the discussion that I hope to have right now around the goals that I have in conjunction with the board. But I don't want to be the only one talking through these goals. So the board all of you were involved in helping to create them and refine them. So I encourage us to have a discussion about them. And they tie directly to the strategic planning goals and the through lines that we discussed before. And there are 5 goals. And some of the goals have sub-goals. So Brian wanted me to have 3, and this is I can't do our math very well. So we're at 5. So advancing equity through student achievement. Equity is the overarching goal. Helping our students achieve is the fundamental mission of our district. There are 5 sub-goals underneath that. Restorative practice, culturally responsive teaching. These are a big focus for us as a district. Last year, we focused a lot on implicit bias training for all staff. And then we began our work, or last 2 years, we began our work last year on restorative practices, working with our administrators. Restorative practices are those proactive steps that we take to build a strong sense of community. Just having students, staff feel connected, welcome, safe. And so that is a lot of the work that we're focused on. This year, we brought in outside consultants to help us with train our equity teams. We're going to be training our counseling staff. And I believe, Annie, you can jump in, that we're going to have some of our professional consultants embedded in our schools and helping in that way as well. The board also, we actually have someone in our district who's trained in restorative practices, took the 5-day institute, and she actually led us in a restorative circle on that July 9th day, where we put away our devices, we got out from behind desks, and we just sat in a circle and we shared. And that circle time that builds community and trust, where every voice is heard, is fundamental to our mission of equity, and it's part of the work that's going to be going on in our schools and our classrooms this year. Culturally responsive teaching. Our teachers have asked for more specifics. What are the nuts and bolts of making this happen? And so we're focused on the components of what does it mean to be a culturally responsive teacher, from an awareness of our own biases and cultural background and development in that way, to an awareness of the cultures that our students are bringing to the classroom, to our use of data, where we're actually looking at concrete data, disaggregating that, and developing action plans associated with that. Building relationships across cultures. So these are the there are 5 components that we've identified, and the goal is for our administrators and our teachers to coach one another in the implementation of some of these very specific strategies to improve culturally responsive teaching. Special education. So you saw the range, I think when Marigela showed the presentation, there were 11 or 12 workshops this summer focused on strengthening our ability to, as teachers, to work with diverse learners. Our teachers have asked for that, and we have been focused for the last 3 years, actually, on doing that kind of work with both our general ed teachers, our teacher assistants, our special ed experts. So in this 3rd year of focus, we're going to be actually doing a program review. So we've done a lot of internal program reviews, social studies, science, math, for example. And this will be, we're actually going to be doing an RFP to invite in some outside experts to help engage us in a program review of special education. So that will be going on this year. One of the sort of the program reviews that Annie led this year was in the area of school-wide enrichment and looking at what the state calls gifted and talented, but what we're looking at really through a lens of equity and how do we help touch every child with our enrichment opportunities. So we have that as a goal this year. We've had a committee that worked throughout last year. And we are looking forward to implementing that in stages beginning this year at sort of the K through 5 level. So Annie and I will be working on that goal together. And then the last sub-goal underneath this, advancing equity through student achievement, has to do with sort of communication and assessing our progress. And it's the development of an equity dashboard. So what are the metrics that we can be looking at to see if we're actually making a difference? We've talked about, as a board, we talked about evidence-based decisions. And so this is, one aspect of that evidence-based work. So we identified things such as, and it doesn't always have to be standardized tests, though that is one measure that we do need to be looking at. But we can also look at how welcoming is our environment, how inclusive is our environment. We can be doing surveys that provide a baseline for that information, looking at graduation rates, placement in AP and honors courses, participation in extracurricular activities or the arts, rates of special education classification. We talked at our last Student Achievement Committee about college persistence, obtaining data on students who go back for their second year of college. And that data, I think, is available to us. Discipline data, engagement in school. We have the Challenge Success Survey, which we administer every other year. So you guys are going to have are you seniors? Both of you seniors, yes? So this December, we will be administering the Challenge Success Survey to all of our students at PHS, and using that data to help us look at a number of measures, one of which is school engagement. So that's sort of goal 1. Any comments or questions from the board?
I would like to say that I think that it's no doubt in my mind that Princeton is one of the leading school districts in the state in terms of making equity a priority. But I think that what I think is most impressive, which certainly started happening before I came on the board, was how we've woven this into the infrastructure of how we operate as a school district, that we're leading with equity, we've linked it to student achievement, but we're kind of looking at it in a variety of different ways for a variety of different populations, and recognizing that equity is not just about low income or brown or black people. It's all across the board where we need to do work to rise, to make sure everybody rises and has an equal chance to achieve lives of joy and purpose. So I'm really excited about the fact that this is what we're leading with, and that it's a priority. So
Thank you. Yeah.
I also just want to add, I think too that it's the fact that we look at special education to see what it offers to our whole district. I think we do so many things in our special education programs and that can benefit all students. And I think connecting that with the idea of equity and I think that the dashboard, I mean, I think we're early stages, right? So what goes on the dashboard remains to be seen. But I think beyond numbers in AP classes, I think we're also going to be able to look at how well are the aspirations of each student being met, and finding a way to measure that on a dashboard. I think we'll be able to demonstrate the way that we're putting these big ideas together, and every student benefiting from them. So I really appreciate that.
Great. Okay. Goal number 2, stewardship of our facilities. And this goal also has sub-goals to it. The first is clear and present to us every day. It's the referendum implementation, oversight, and communication. You're going to hear about that tonight as we do an update on where we are with the referendum projects. And we'll hear more about that, I believe, on the 10th, are we doing something? 24th. We'll give a more full update on where all of the projects are and the ones that are going to be bid and the schedule for completion. But we want to continue to, we're on time, on budget, moving forward, and we want to continue that progress and continue communicating about it. The sustainability and energy efficiency. I'm glad you're in the back there, Mr. Harding. As was mentioned in our facilities meeting today, you have a long, long list of things that you inherited when you came here in July. And I know that sustainability and energy efficiency is on that list, and we are looking for those things that we can be doing with our facilities and with our practices that support energy savings and an awareness of sustainability among our students and our staff. Want to work with our community. Brian, you were talking about sort of resiliency today, and that the climate action plan that's been generated in our community and how the schools can be a part of that. So I think that all that work is part of what we're hoping to focus on. This is I don't want you to get overwhelmed by looking at this particular slide, but I'm glad you're here tonight. Planning for growth. So as I mentioned at the outset with the enrollment numbers, we are growing. So we are already up 1%, more than 1% than from where we were last year at this time, and that number will continue to grow. We're looking at, soon we'll be getting the formal affordable housing settlement, and that will share with the broader community development within our town. And we have a working group that's developing demographic projections with our demographer, making sure that we have agreed upon assumptions. And so we are beginning this work to sort of begin to plan for the growth that we know is coming. And so the board is very focused on being good stewards of the district, and knowing that we are growing and trying to plan for that growth in a way that that meets the needs of our students and staff and is also affordable. And so this goal is around sort of 3 phases to this goal: updating our demographic projections and our capacity analysis of our buildings, really outlining multiple options for the board and for the community regarding possible ways of expanding our schools and meeting the need, and then presenting funding options that minimize the tax impact. This is what we wrote the goal sort of on July 9th. We then began to sort of see the complexity of what was involved in actually planning for growth, because once again, the theme here is about collaboration. We can't do this alone. So the school has needs, and we need to identify what those are. We know that our town, our community has needs. There are probably points of nexus where we can work together as the town continues to grow and develop. And so a lot of our thinking, and we have what's our group called? Strategic Advisory Committee on Growth and Capacity, yes. a number of our community members who have expertise in sort of the master planning world and development have been meeting to kind of help us think this through. And one of the conclusions is that we actually may need a really experienced professional planner to guide us in that work. Let's see if this next slide comes up. So we actually looked at other communities, Park City, Corvallis, Oregon, a few other places that Brookline, Massachusetts, that had been through the same kind of growth that we are experiencing. And we saw the kind of work that they had done to do the master planning and to truly engage the community in that process. And so that was one of the data points sort of looking nationally and that said, this is Princeton, we need to do this right. So we actually did an RFP for planning firms, and we brought in 3 to interview. And the first question that I posed was, well, tell us what your process will be for figuring out what we should do. The firm that we sort of are moving forward, and we're going to actually invite them to come and present to the board and the public on September 10th. This was the first slide they showed, which actually spelled out the process in far more detail than I'd conceived of it or that we as a board had conceived of it. So you can see there are multiple stages to really looking at the demographic, housing, and economic analysis, the enrollment analysis, the facility reviews, the functional capacity. They are a firm that has multiple, they're a team. So they have master planners, they have architects, they have educational consultants, and they're based out of New Haven, but they have educational consultants and architects who know our schools who are in the Princeton area. So they are not looking just at growth and capacity and space, but they're looking at learning for kids. And what I loved about this graphic, and the reason that I sort of stole this slide from their deck that they shared with us, was the long line underneath that was all about community engagement and how to put out surveys to our entire community with, these are the options we're thinking about, give us some feedback. And then breaking that out by, do you have children in the schools? Are you a senior? Are you on a fixed income? So you can actually look at the data and get a true feel for the community and get real numbers in terms of how people are experiencing the options, doing charrettes, that kind of work. They really loved the idea of the fact that we'd already have a small advisory committee, which they then wanted to expand. So they said, 20, 25 people, range of representation within the community, sort of as your core advisory group, and we keep coming back to that group to share ideas. So I'm actually going to stop there because there are other people sitting around this table who have even greater insight into the planning process, and I won't open it up to anyone who wants to share anything about this particular goal and how we as a board are looking to approach it.
Well, I'd just like to say I'm excited. I've been obviously engaged in this with all of you this year, and I feel that we have come to a point of clarity where we kind of see now we've been wrestling with this challenge and trying to figure out what is the best way to approach this, and how do we get our arms around it, and how do we do this where the community comes with us and understands what needs to be done, and we collectively come to the right decision where it's not going to be, we just don't want to revisit what we experienced last year, where I think there was so much concern and strife and questions, and people felt like they didn't hear each other somehow, and we learned a lot, and the exciting thing is last year and in the last couple of years, I think we've done a lot of great work that is not gone away, and we still have it, and now we're thinking of ways to kind of move forward with it and explore whether some of the things we've already thought of are the right solution, or perhaps there's other ones we haven't thought of. There's going to be ideas from people in the community, and I think that by engaging a professional firm that brings all of these tools to us, I'm excited about where we're going to go, and I'm excited about the work we've already done. And we have these 2 citizen groups that we've formed because we knew we had to somehow engage the talent in the community and all the people who wanted to help us. And so we've got a group that's been wrestling with enrollment and future enrollment, and we know now that it's going up, and there's no question that it's going up, particularly with the affordable housing. And the question is now, well, which particular mathematical ratios are going to be used in the demographic report? And we've got 4 different potential models, and we really have gotten into it in a very Princeton way, I think, more than most communities. But we have all that already going. So when you look at the chart, we're not starting from the far left. We're actually, moving. We're quite a bit along in some of this work.
Right.
So it's not necessarily ground zero, but we found people who can come and take what we've got and help us go to the next step in a way that's, I think, really exciting. So
I would just add 2 things. I think this would be enormously helpful. And in many ways, it's the most important thing we can do, which is to ensure that we have the right facilities for our teachers to teach in and our students to learn in, and that we're set up to be doing that well into the future. And right now, we're not. We're doing some important projects, but it is crystal clear with 11% enrollment growth over the last 5 years and an expected additional 10% over the next 6 to 9 years, that we're going to need more space, and that we need to address the character and of the aging facilities, some of which go back 90 years, which are no longer well suited for 21st century pedagogy. And so I think this is a process that will obviously build on a lot of good work that's already been done. But the one thing that I think among the 3 very strong groups that were considered, that this one, where they really stood out, was their success in broadly engaging the community. And in the conversations with the people who had worked with them, that came through loud and clear. And I think that our community will benefit from a thoughtful and holistic discussion about what education looks like here in Princeton, and to ensure that we retain that #1 ranking to the extent that that's possible. I'd also make one other note. While doing this in a resource-constrained environment, some people might wonder about how we will fund this. But there's no question that we would be going to the public sometime in the future with what we hope will be 1 or more carefully constructed referenda, and that this would be a capitalized cost that would be embedded in those projects. So doing this takes no money out of the operating budget. I just want to be very clear that that's something, we don't have any discussions anymore without talking about whether an expense is absolutely critical. I think this one would pass that test, but it will be a capitalized expense.
I like this. It looks really good, but are you sure the funding wouldn't come out of the operating budget? I mean, I don't know when we're hiring them. If we're talking about maybe in January, and I don't know what the cost is, but maybe the referendum would pay back. But I think it would have to come, I mean, I don't know where the money comes from unless a referendum is passed in the next time possible. So do we have a feel for what this would cost? I mean, it looks good, but do we have a feel for what it would cost?
So they are reviewing the materials that we provided for them on enrollment and capacity to see if they can abbreviate their process and the scope of their work and reduce the cost. Their original proposal was around 140, I think. So I'm thinking we're going to be less than that. But 100,000, I don't know at this point. We're going to be hearing from them on September 10th.
So that's when
We'll know the price before then. We'll know the approximate cost before then.
And when would we want to vote for them to get and bring them on to get started? Do we have a feel for that? Is it we talking January or November or?
I think the sooner we can move with this, the better. They feel like they can actually do it from soup to nuts if they were starting at ground zero with us, it would be 9 months. They may be able to do it in 6 or 7, based on the materials that we have, the work we've done already. So I would say if we can start sooner, I think that will be helpful for us.
Will it be important to have the affordable housing, all that finalized before they start working? I guess I'd be worried if they did a lot and then
Yeah.
the numbers came in
Yeah.
later and then they have to go back and redo it. 'Cause
Right.
I just remember the demographer that we used
Yeah, no,
before.
we're aware of it,
As,
yeah.
as more information came in, the numbers would be updated to be more accurate with,
It just gets confusing and you're
Yeah.
chasing a ball.
yeah, so I
It's-
would want to be careful that we don't.
We've been struggling with
Yeah.
that all summer. We've been trying to get and we keep thinking, well, it's almost coming, and then it doesn't. And what we've decided to do at this point is to develop a model based on what has been disclosed publicly by the town, and also kind of talking back and forth with them and saying, are we in the ballpark? And I think we are in the ballpark now. And so we will have assumptions that we can show, and if we do get better information, we'll be very clear what we're adjusting. But that's an issue. But I think we've gotten much more close to the actual impact of the affordable housing, because we do have now professional studies on school impact. We know the safe site. We know exactly what's going to go on that site. We know a number of the projects now, which we didn't have any idea about last year, and now it's become much clearer to us. So I think the data that we've got is much better than last year, just because we've had the benefit of time. But it is going to continue. We don't want to be doing this multiple times, so.
But I
you're
think
right.
we are very close. We have been
Yeah.
in good conversation with the town. I think
Right.
we know most of the projects and the development, and we have some preliminary enrollment projections that are actually dead on with where we are right now, so.
I just want to make a comment about how we characterize affordable housing, because this town has a history around specifically Griggs Farm and the construction of that, and how that community, and I lived there for 8 years, how that community got painted with a brush of all the ills of overcrowding and no room in the schools was because we built all this affordable housing. And I want to make sure that we're really careful about how we use that terminology in the context of how our school population is going to be impacted, because part of why the population is going to grow in this town is not because we're building units for very low income and low income people exclusively. Part of the reason the numbers are going to go up is because we're going to use builders' remedies and build larger developments that are only going to be partial with affordable housing units.
Yeah.
And so I want us to be really careful about how we use that terminology, because sometimes it'll come back and bite us.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
I
people
agree.
who move in to live in those developments, whether they're affordable or not affordable, have to deal with the stigma
Yep.
for a long time. And I don't think we want to start out that
appreciate
way.
that.
So we need to be really careful about our language.
Thank you for that,
Yep,
Michelle.
absolutely.
There's a lot of market rate. It's market rate residential development is the bulk of what we're looking at in the next 5 to 10 years that we know of, even if it's in connection with this kind of COA development. So I appreciate that, and
Yeah, we just need to be really conscious
Yep.
about
Thank you.
Thank
how
you.
we speak.
Is the demographer's report done? Is there an,
no.
oh, okay, because you said you were sending it to him. Because, no, that was wondering, I haven't seen anything. And I was curious when we were going to see.
We didn't send him, I think that we've sent them the previous
Right.
information from last year that we have.
Okay, so when, the group that's working on that, when will that be something we can look at?
We may be able to send out something. It's still in, as you said, there are 4 different
So, your question is, when do you
options.
want to send it out? Because
4
then
different
it gets
assumptions.
changed when they have a meeting, and the group says, well, we want to change this assumption, so they keep switching things around, so I'm not sure.
We have
But-
another meeting September 5th, I believe.
Yeah, but at some point, we'll just share it with the board. We've
Yeah.
shared the most recent ones with the board previously. I think that we send the
Demographer?
ones?
Not in a while.
Maybe we did the school impact numbers. There's a lot of data that's been, it's not finalized, but we should be able to give something. to
Well,
the
it's
board,
just,
but
it's
there's-
hard for me because you said you sent stuff to them and they're coming up with a plan.
They're
And
no
I'm
one's
like,
coming, they're not coming with a plan yet, but we've sent
they're coming with a
information
presentation? What kind of
based on,
presentation?
based on the information that we've already prepared. As I said, this board has done a lot of work, right? You've got
So we have capacity studies, we have the present, all the the referendum presentations, like.
All the
so-
work from last
right.
year, so that's what
Right.
they've got.
And you also said the demographers report, so that's just
There's
why I'm asking.
The old demographers reports,
Okay,
which
well, I'm asking
show
which one.
similar,
Yeah,
the ones that he's redoing with the more clear numbers are actually coming out. They're looking
About the same.
quite similar.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly, the demographer in the past 2 years did 2 reports using 2 different methodologies. And right now, there are 4 different
4.
methodologies that are all being reviewed and looked at side by side. And the group has been talking through the strengths and weaknesses of each of those methodologies. And I think when they come out of their September meeting, the goal will be to sort of narrow the focus in terms of which of those methodologies are likely to be the most accurate ones, and they will be able to talk to that, and then show us the preliminary ranges. So they won't have the final,
Right.
settlement, but it will be clear that we will be growing, and by some general magnitude and over some period of time. But it will be presented in a way that I think anybody will be able to understand it, because it is not intuitive when
No,
you look
not at
at the demographer stuff and the language that is used about survival rates and whatnot. So this group has been very good about understanding that, and preparing to turn that into language that we can all understand. And I think we'll be updating it annually, but hopefully this fall we'll have something.
And once we have a baseline, and then we can, the beauty of what the professional group like this can offer is that we can then start charting over the next 10 years which developments and which housing we know are coming, and what type, and where they're going to be, and which portions of our school district will be impacted, and whether we have to redistrict. And the group like this has done 64 redistrictings?
Something like that, yes. That they
64.
geocode
So
every
they-
student.
They come in
and-
and they sit down and they say, well, this is how we do it, and here's how we explain it in plain English, so people understand it. And it's kind of just like the light goes on and says, well, that's very simple, and that's what we need. We need that type of help to be able to not only know where we're going in year 2, year 5, year 7, year 10, but also if we come up with a plan for it, we're going to have Plan A, Plan B, Plan C for different ways we can address the growth. We will then have to plan for a referendum and communicate about that and have that timing. But in the meantime, the growth is there, and we may have to do redistricting or other things, and we need advisors to help us even get through the interim period while we're planning, while we're going for approvals, while we're building. You have to continue to think about how do you manage the students. And so to have that kind of expertise available to the board, I think would be very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. So sort of continuing with facility stewardship, and you set me up nicely, Brian, because you talked about pedagogical practice, and that we're not just building more space. We have to build space that really supports the learning that our students or teachers are engaged in. And so the other piece of this goal was just to form a committee with Annie, with teachers, with administrators, with some of our university colleagues and community members, and look at sort of best pedagogical practices around the use of space, whether it's the actual classroom space or the furniture that's in it, and technology, et cetera. And then you also highlighted the fact that we have buildings between 50 and 100 years old, and we need to maintain them. So that's the other piece of what's going on here. We submit a maintenance plan to the county, a 3-year maintenance plan every October. I know it's one other thing that Mr. Harding is working on, but at the same time, he's keeping his own sort of internal notes, personal notes about the areas of focus. And so that will be something that we'll be able to share with the board at the end of the year. Yes.
Just to follow up on that, and one of the reasons why I was very excited about the possibilities that we face together as a community is that we know what some of the issues are. We know that the issues have been divisive in the past, but we also know that we have a community that was energized by this, and we listened to the community. And so what we heard, or what I heard at least, was that the community wants to be involved in the discussions from day one. So we're approaching this with no preconceived notions. We have a lot of really good data. We have a lot of really good work that's already been done. We have a community that's already supported us in the current referendum. So we've started on that. We've used that as an opportunity to pilot things, to test things out, to get stronger. But now is our chance to take the next step because we know that more change is coming. We can do it in a reactive way, but we heard from the community that's not what people want. They want a proactive way. And so, again, as our superintendent said, what I liked about the planning firm, and all three firms were very good, what I liked about this planning firm was that community engagement part that ran through everything. So however long this process is going to take, the idea is it's going to be done together. And if we do it together, that means we're going to be able to identify the very best approaches. And sometimes, and I've heard this from many of community members, they're saying, think outside the box. You know, look at what other places have done as a best practice. By engaging a planning firm with this type of skill set, we can do that. And that's why I'm really excited about this being running through our goals and being such an important part of what all of us will be working on for the next few years.
Okay. Moving to goal number 3, we move from stewardship of our facilities to stewardship and sustainability of our finances, and really beginning with priority-based budgeting. This is a shift for us, and I'm excited to have Matt join us at this critical juncture to help us think differently about the way that we budget and even the timing of our budget. So a typical budget is developed with last year's numbers and balances as sort of the starting point. And then you're adding some percentage to that. Priority-based budgeting says, okay, what's the most important things that you want to see done in your building, in your department, for the district, and then we build the budget based on those priorities and based on what we know is the revenue we have available. And so we are going to be starting that process, I'm hoping earlier than we typically start in December, January. We may be starting as quickly as October and trying to develop a set of options for the board to look at because we know that we are going to be facing structural deficits and budget gaps, and we want to be able to have meaningful discussion about the options for closing those. So that's the first thing. This is the next thing has to do with fair and sustainable agreements with all of our associations. So we have 3 associations representing our wonderful almost 800 staff in the district. The Teachers Association, the Administrators Association, the Support Staff Association, and we will be engaged in conversations with them this year about new contracts. And so we look forward to those conversations and the opportunity to find a fair and sustainable agreement. So that will be a goal for this year. Community collaboration regarding shared services. So this is something that's ongoing. I know Michelle and a few others have been involved in discussions with the town, and I believe we have a meeting coming up.
We do.
In September, like the second week or so, to continue those conversations with a consulting firm who's going to help us find more savings than we may have already. We have partnerships, for example, with the YWCA, as we're looking at for our expanded preschool, with the YMCA for grants that we've been able to obtain. So we want to continue to find ways to collaborate with our community in ways that benefit our students and save cost to the district. And then generating creative measures for reducing expenses and generating creative measures for increasing revenue. So we continue to look at our Princeton Saves emails as they come in, and each committee examines those. We are coming up with other options for creative ways of trying to reduce costs and still maintain the services that we provide to our students and staff. And then we're also going to be continuing to look at ways of generating revenue. And then finally, the board and I will be continuing our advocacy at the state level for legislative change around school funding. We're going to talk a little bit tonight, I think, in the Finance Committee about maybe the results of some advocacy that led to increased funding for extraordinary aid for special needs costs, but we want to be able to have those conversations. We've joined with the Garden State Coalition, which is a group of 100 school districts that do this kind of advocacy work and try and get changes that will benefit students and schools and towns. Anybody want to speak to the financial stewardship piece?
To link these in, we obviously are going to talk about district goals separately, but they're all kind of aligned, which is, I think, we spent a lot of time in July talking about these and trying to make sure we're in alignment at the superintendent and the staff down level, at the district level, and at the board level to support that. And so I'll just, obviously our first priority was student achievement, and you have outlined pretty much the district goal that we've put on top of that. And then the second thing was facilities planning, and you've outlined the major tenets of that, which we reflected in the district goal, and then also financial sustainability. And for the last two, I would just say that as a board, we will support that, and we believe that we need to look at multi-year planning on both of those. And so a lot of the things you've talked about and that we've discussed here reflect the fact that we've got three main goals, and they are student achievement, financial sustainability, and facilities planning. And we are trying to look forward on all of those things. We're not just planning 1 year, we're planning 5 years, we're planning 3 to 5 years. And so on financial stewardship in particular, we need to get to financial sustainability, fiscal sustainability, and that's not going to happen overnight because we have a structural deficit. But we, as a board, I think, are committed to finding that path over the next several years, and so a lot of the things you've outlined is how we're going to get there. So thank you.
Great. I have two more goals. I'll move through them very quickly. We talked about this goal at our last meeting in July. We really celebrated some of the vision that we have around sort of transforming child nutrition and having our cafeterias be an extension of our classrooms, and really using food as a way of teaching, of bringing students together, as a way of understanding different cultures, as a way of understanding food as science. But we are incredibly excited to have sort of a new leadership team that's working with us from NutriServe, who's focused on this. We've met with them already about some ideas of a salad bar at JW. We've seen the benefits, some of the food that came in for our new teacher orientation. People thought we'd order it out from Olives. So I'm continuing to be excited by the potential for the quality of the food and the engagement with our students. So that's a piece of the goal here, is that we're really talking to our students about what they want to eat, and giving them choices that are helpful for them, talking about even finding family recipes, and they say that they'll try and cook those in our kitchens. So this is the goal here: a globally adventurous, locally sourced, wholesome, delicious menu. Number one, student survey and way to evaluate the quality of our food and the cultural diversity represented through our food offerings. Goals for increased participation and a clear plan for getting there, and then sustainability protocols, which might have to do with how we handle food waste or food sharing, how we're doing recycling, those kinds of things. So that's all part of the goal around child nutrition. And the last goal is really looking at our communication structure, which we want to see as multi-people, multi-platform, doing more with social media. We have a new website that we're going to continue to update. We're going to be working with the individuals at each school who can help to push information out. And we really want to use the communication platforms to celebrate learning and student achievement, to tell the stories of our teachers and our kids, to honor the diverse languages and cultures within our community, obviously to provide information about key issues and initiatives and respond in any crisis situations that occur. And it has to be two-way communication. So it's not just what we're pushing out, but an opportunity for us to get feedback. So those are the 5 goals, and any comments or questions about them?
It's a tall order.
Yeah, it started with 3, didn't it, Brian?
Brian, you should have held the line.
And just to tie that back, so we do have the district goals that we've circulated to the board that support these, and if there's anyone who wants to have any comments on the district goals as they're interrelated.
Talk about our board goals related.
Yeah.
Is it okay to make a comment about that now?
Sure, and I guess the board goals, just to give the context, then we have this year adopted board goals, which are more process-oriented, right? Did you want to talk to that?
Well, just that I think I think our board goals align really quite beautifully with the goals of the district and the superintendent, not surprisingly, but they relate to evidence-based decision-making, they relate to communication and accountability. And so I think, with the through line Steve's talking about in terms of community and connection, and so I think that I'm hopeful that by modeling those kinds of approaches to communication and to accountability, and really looking at data and evidence as we have these conversations, I think that we stand to make progress on all of this. But I think it's really by our efforts as a board to reflect these same expectations.
Thank you.
From a process standpoint, we are sharing the district and board goals in draft form tonight for
Yes.
discussion, and then we'll adopt them at an upcoming meeting?
At the monthly September meeting in September 24th.
I think so.
Yeah, yeah. So as a process matter, we just wanted to make sure we came up with them as a group in July. We then took time and we were on various vacations, but a number of people did contribute to our drafting of the district and the board goals, and I appreciate the help everyone gave to that. And so tonight's just a time to make sure we're all in agreement on the text, and then we will approve them at our next monthly
And are they
meeting.
accessible to the public in
They're
case?
they're
Okay,
attached
so
to
the public can see them in case
agenda.
they have comments.
Yeah, we don't have a slide, but they are.
We can post them.
We s-
They're on board docs now.
Right.
They're on board docs, they're public, and once they're approved by us, obviously, they will be on the website.
Well, can
for
Gabe put them
September.
up if they're on board docs?
Oh, that'd be great.
The board goals? So I have some comments on the board goals. We don't have equity anywhere in here. We don't have the word. I don't feel like this flows at all. So I was a little confused with the board ones. I'm fine with the district. And are they supposed to be such procedural? Because the last one, board leadership will hold committee chairs and they're, accountable and blah, blah, blah. I feel like I'm reading, a procedure. And I would think we would want something more. The board committee, in collaboration with the administration, shall define committee goals in support of the district's strategic plans. 72 hours of a committee meeting, I don't know if that's a goal. I think that's like a mandate for me. But I was a little surprised we don't have equity in here when that is just who we are, as Michelle said. It's everything we are and everything we talk about. So I was a little surprised. Yeah, so the third one to me, I could not approve the third one here because I feel it's just too, marching orders.
I think the idea that we're drafting is really, it's about how we govern ourselves as a board and setting measurable expectations for how we would support the district goals. And so really, equity is, to me, in these goals, equity is in all of them because we've already established that as a district, that's what we're about. And so the board goals are about how do we specifically govern ourselves in order to act in support of the community and the goals that we've established as a school district. So,
Yeah.
These are board governance goals, right?
Yeah,
Process.
for a year.
Yeah.
The things that we think we can accomplish and, demonstrate that we have accomplished them.
There are little ways we can improve our own governance and our own processes in 1 year that support what we're doing and what we're about, which are the district goals are all of our goals. This is our marching orders, basically. Everything starts from the district goals. So what we do, what Steve does, what we ask him to do, flows from the district goals, which are all about equity.
Yeah, I said that. I said I didn't have an issue with the district. It's the board ones. Just, thank you. Yeah, so the third one, the board,
The board only exists in order to support the mission of the district.
Mike?
I think the board goals are here in the service of the district. So it's implied, I think, that our district goals are the big picture goals that we hold as a board. And these are the concrete ways in the next year that we as a board hold ourselves accountable to that vision. That's the way I would
I guess if you called them board processes, like the third one would flow better.
Yeah, and if the language seems strong, we should have that
Yeah.
conversation. But I think the goal is, right now, I'm not aware that there's any place anyone can go to see the definition of committees, their purpose.
Absolutely.
The things that they do, every year, periodically and occasionally, and we need that. And I think that we have heard from the public that as many open meetings as possible, with the exception of personnel, makes sense. And we've seen the benefit of having the public at these meetings. There's an awful lot of knowledge and great questions that we hear that are helping us make better decisions. And the communication piece, we've also heard that we'd like to see agendas sooner. We'd like to see, meeting notes. We know what happened at the meetings. I do agree that it does sound a little strong, and so we can work on the language.
Yeah, more collaboration. I can share with what I came up with. But yeah, I just feel it's way too strong and it's not.
Do you want to send, I don't know who is owning these right now. Should I do it? I mean, I'm happy to take that. and-
Okay.
Comments, we can send them to you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess as long as we agree on what we're trying to get, the substance of it, of the process, I'm sure that the language can be tweaked.
One of the experiences I have all the time is this stress between your governance board is staying in that governance space and staying out of the weeds and being sort of a major player, but not the hands-on player. And so I mean, I'm the equity girl. I mean, I always look at things through an equity lens. That's what's most important to me. However, I think that we need to make sure that we're aligned with our superintendent and his goals and the larger district goals. And there are things that we need to do in order to inspire confidence in the public that we are being transparent and that they can have confidence in our ability to lead on those governance issues. So, I hear you. It does seem a little bit operational as opposed to visionary, but I think we have a lot of vision going on with our board goals and with our superintendent goals, and I think our job is to support them. So.
Yeah, and I think many districts, we've heard that they haven't done board goals, and we haven't done them. I think we did them for the first time this year. Because effectively, most districts have district goals, and that's what they're all working towards. But actually, to have board goals gives us just a few things, and I don't think we're doing so many things, but this gives us 3 things to focus on. That if we got that, did those well this year, it would help align with the larger effort. So, okay. So, any suggestions, new language? Send it to me, and then I can send it out to everyone again. Or have Patty do it, or figure out how to do that. All right. So, are we ready to move on? So, 9 o'clock, I think we're going to move on to the committee reports. The first committee report will be from our student board members. And it's summertime, so if you've got a short one, that's fine.
So hi, hope you all are doing well. So Charlie and I will be talking about some ideas and concerns of ours and of our peers, and what's been going on lately at PHS. So freshman orientation was this past week, and I was there. Charlie was also there. I was there as a peer group leader, and meeting the freshmen was absolutely amazing. Like, they're so nice. They're a bit excited. They're also very nervous. I was too. When I see the kids, they're like 6 feet tall. I'm like 5'6", and looking down, like, hi. So, hoping I'm gonna get a great group of kids for my peer group. So, one concern of ours is relieving stress and mental wellness at PHS. So there's already a club at PHS, Transition PHS, that kind of help incoming freshmen who aren't from the area adjust the new PHS lifestyle. We'd love to also see many more activities geared towards relieving stress. Something that came up in one of our meetings was meditation. So like meditation, periods during our tiger time possibly, just to help the freshmen kind of relax, adjust, and take off some of the stress they might have. And then we're also hoping to have a peer group play a bigger role in terms of relieving stress through different activities. I think it's one of the most efficient ways of doing that because the freshmen are going to get used to building bonds with their leaders. So I think that's really important, and the leaders will really help guide them through relieving that type of stress they might have. So we're also going to try and instill more school spirit at PHS. I think that's something I think it's something we're definitely lacking. So for School Spirit Week, we are looking to have it run by our clubs because we have over 100 clubs. Club activity at PHS, is really high. And I'm sure that the very popular clubs will kind of attract a ton of students. For example, might have a day where there's international-based clubs having, presenting and showcasing all their different foods and just having a day like that. Or you could have, an iLaunch day where they release a new app for our students to test out. Or even a sports-based club day. You can kind of have these friendly competitions. I know we have a spike ball club at our school, and they had this really big tournament with like over 50 kids, and it was absolutely amazing. I was there playing soccer. I was watching. Not the best at spike ball, so I didn't join that. And then I think something that also could work would be having the tower at PHS. I write for the tower, and I think we really need to promote the paper, so maybe having them do a little event during our School Spirit Week. And then parking has also come to our attention. So just to mention that, I know it's geared towards seniors and juniors, but just want to mention that. I'll hand it over to Charlie.
Yeah, so like in lieu of our formal report, we also just thought it would be a good idea to kind of update you on what Student Council has been doing over the past couple of weeks and also what we plan to do during the first couple of weeks of school. So as Mateo mentioned, we did have the freshman orientation. We worked with the new members of peer group to run that, and it included things like a panel of students answering questions, campus tours, locker information, the picnic, and I should also mention that this Thursday is the makeup orientation, and it'll be run by Student Council. Out of the gates, we wanted to just instill a lot of school spirit in the incoming class. Personally, I don't think that we lack school spirit. I just think that it lies in like our really active club atmosphere and in our sports teams. So I think that we wanted the Spirit Week to involve theme days decided on by clubs and different student-run groups, and not just include things like dressing up, but having different activities that pertain to the clubs that are planning the Spirit Week. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago where we discussed some larger events that we were going to plan, just to go through some of them. They include like a mini golf night, the Mr. PHS pageant, just big events like that some of which we've done in the past, but some new ones. And finally, we just want to work on, and Ms. Ligas has also been really pushing to like re-legitimize Student Council by having more frequent meetings, holding representatives more accountable for their commitment, possibly like reforming the election process a lot of people think that it's like a popularity contest, so we want to kind of reform that. And she said a possible overhaul of the Student Council Constitution, which is much needed because I've never read the Constitution. And we, as Mateo said, we want to put a large focus on the stress culture, especially at PHS, as well as mental health. I mentioned in the last meeting that a lot of people brought that up during the campaigns, that mental health is like one of their biggest issues. And I think the only thing else I should mention is that our next like formal student council meeting is this Thursday. So.
Thank you. Did anyone have questions for students?
Say that, I really appreciate both of you talking about the student concerns about mental health and well-being. And I think if we're all doing this together, I feel like the message I hope that our students incoming are getting is as much really focusing on what is it that would bring you joy and purpose in your education, because if there's more emphasis on the joy and the purpose, perhaps there's less of a sense, and we're not going to eliminate stress, right? Stress is a part of life, but we can help to hopefully build more and more of the joy and purpose. And I think it's the things that you're experiencing in the club culture that sort of naturally has that. How can we infuse the rest of the day with that feeling so that we're not so much catching up for the lack of mental health, but we're actually also promoting the positive experience that we hope kids are having. Challenge.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you're kind of updating us on, real time what's going on in the schools. It's really helpful to hear that. And the idea of the school spirit, it's there, right? It's in the clubs. It is. And infusing it back into the school day and the idea of rethinking Spirit Week is kind of an exciting idea. So thank you. Next is equity.
On August the 12th, we had our most recent equity meeting, and it was really, we had an extraordinary presentation by Ginny Bryant, and she came to talk about special education, partly in her role, and she's a regular attendee at equity committee meetings, and she came in her role as from the special ed PTO, but she also just really gave an informative presentation and historical presentation on how special ed education has progressed through the law. And she gave us some pretty disturbing statistics about special education, that what the purpose is from the law, which was passed in 1975, is that we're seeking for all children a free, appropriate, and least restrictive education. And so for children who are special education students, we are looking for, the preference is inclusion, not necessarily need-based placements. And she talked about how it's a civil right, and she talked about how New Jersey is one of the least compliant states in terms of inclusion. On that topic, we have the most out of district placements in the country, and she said that is analogous to race segregation in the 1950s, which is something that should make us all stop in our tracks and really think about how we address this issue. She mentioned really clearly that she wasn't picking on Princeton, that this is a statewide challenge because New Jersey is rich enough to enforce separate but equal when it comes to special education. So, again, it was a great presentation. She talked about school being the driver of exclusion, that we can't be us and them, that students with special needs and students without special needs benefit as much from inclusion as students with special needs. And she talked about how New Jersey is having this explosive growth in kids with autism. 1 in 35 kids in New Jersey has autism, and the number nationally is 1 in 59 children. So there's a lot to talk about in terms of kids being siloed, challenges with how those kids are included in class and also in the school society. So when you talk about clubs and that being sort of the center of school spirit, one of the things that's really important as I hear these things and we talk about equity is how accessible are those clubs to our kids with IEPs or special ed. And she also talked about something that was really interesting, which I thought was a key point when we talk about communication. And so she talked about her daughter and how her daughter, because she has an IEP and has been a special education student, has a friend group that's not like most white kids who go to Princeton schools. Because she's in these classrooms, her friend groups are brown and black. and a lot of low-income kids. And she questioned why we had this disproportionate number of placements. But something that she pointed out, which I was unaware of, is she talked about how the culture in Princeton is that if you want to do a play date or talk to another parent, you send them an email. Well, in certain parent groups, especially low-income groups that don't necessarily have internet access or a computer at home, you text. So when we send out notices about what's happening in the school and we say to parents, oh, you can access grades on Power School and all these kinds of things, what we're saying to a really big group of people is you have to access information about your child in a way that is going to be complex and difficult for you. So we play to the privileged as opposed to those that we should be being a lot more aware that they have more challenges in terms of obtaining information and staying on top of what's happening with their kids in school and what's happening in our schools. So great presentation. I would love to have her come and talk to the entire board because the special ed PTO comes in and they give us a really high-level conversation, and that's what we need to hear. But when she talked about it from the perspective of a parent, it really took on a whole different meaning. And it's part of our listening tour in the equity committee. It's really hard to sit for a year and listen and not take any concrete action. But I think that the benefit of listening is learning a lot of things from our populations in the schools that don't necessarily ever have an opportunity to be heard. So that's my report.
Thank you very much. Question?
Yeah, just a comment. It was really personal and just very eye-opening. I mean everything Michelle said. I mean, it was really great. Yeah, and I know her too, and I've never seen that part of her. So it was just she really opened herself up to us, but shared a lot. I was appreciative of it.
The interesting insight I got out of it was that when she was talking about having the special ed kids in the mainstream classes helps the mainstream kids because the real world, we're all out there together. And so you get used to people that aren't exactly like you. And it's like, that's a new, completely different way of looking at it than I had thought of it.
Great. Facilities, next. Greg?
Sure. So facilities actually met what seems like many, many days ago, but it was actually this morning or this afternoon. So I would actually like to ask our point person on the Facilities Committee, Brian, to just give a quick summary of what transpired.
Sure. The Hardworking Facilities Committee has actually met 3 times since the last board meeting on July 22nd, August 12th, and earlier today. And at all those meetings, we've been joined by members of the public, and having those members of the public there has really been extremely helpful. There are people who know a lot, who are greatly interested, who ask great questions, and it helps us to make better decisions. And so I'm grateful for their participation and encourage everybody to consider attending the Facilities Committee meetings. Our next meeting is September 9th at 8:30 in the morning. And then at the September 24th board meeting, we'll be allocating about a half hour to provide what will probably be, what we hope will be quarterly updates on the referendum. And then as we do more work related to planning, that might be factored in. And we'll also talk about some of the regular maintenance that goes on. And at the August 12th meeting, Dave Harding, and welcome again, Dave. And he is one hard-working guy who's getting a lot done and in keeping many long lists of opportunities for us to do to take better care of our facilities, to implement preventative maintenance programs, and to ensure that the referendum projects go very, very well. And Dave updated us on a lot of work that was going on over the summer that had nothing to do with the referendum. I won't go into that now because he'll have an opportunity to talk about that at the end of at the meeting in September. The main focus of the Facilities Committee has been on the summer referendum projects, and I have to caution everybody that no complicated projects go perfectly. But with that said, the 3 projects this summer have gone surprisingly well. Not perfectly, but surprisingly well, and we shouldn't get used to how well everything is going But let me just give you a quick update. I'll start closest. Today, for those of you who happen to go past the high school, you would have seen a crane in the parking lot by PAC. It was hoisting a very large air conditioning unit onto the roof. So over the next, all the interior work has been done for air conditioning the gym. There's now some number of days of work on top of the roof and making the connections. It's unclear whether it will be flipped on for the first day of school or whether it will take a bit longer. But that was originally supposed to be delivered on October 15th and up and running by the end of October. So we're going to beat that by about 7 weeks. And that is, I think, good news. The electrical upgrades at the 4 elementary schools, leaving Riverside for the moment, because I'll come back to that. The upgrades have gone very well. All the significant work has been done. And I think they're at one school, they're still cleaning up a little before tomorrow when everybody comes in. There are still some wires that need to be pulled in some schools. That can happen in evenings and on weekends. The 3 schools, Littlebrook, Johnson Park, and Community Park all need new transformers. So PSA&G does an analysis, and based on the increased electrical loads, in part driven by the air conditioning units, we need new transformers. The first 2 will probably be released around November. And the plan right now is to install at all 3 schools during spring break. So we don't need to incur the additional cost of large generators to operate during the multi-day period in which those transformers are installed and connected. But we're very pleased with how that work has been done. There was a meeting today with PSE&G on one issue at Johnson Park, which is the location of the transformer and the ability of PSE&G to access it. Since we began our referendum and are now with the bids, PSE&G has changed some of their policies, and it may be necessary to select a new location of the transformer. And if that happens, it will probably result in some additional costs for us, and we'll be talking about that along the way. At Riverside, there are 28 new ventilators, basically heating and air conditioning units being installed. 27 of them are set. The other one will be set when a louver arrives in a day or two. Right now, while we're here, a team of our employees is working very hard at Riverside to prepare the rooms for teachers who are getting there tomorrow. Many of those workers and some others will be working all day tomorrow and tomorrow night to get the rest of the rooms ready. The contractor will fulfill their contract. All the units will be installed, turned on, and working by August 30th. And then the contractor needs to comply with the kind of second piece, which is to ensure that all of the painting and cabinetry is complete by September 30th. A lot of that's done. There are a few things that still need to be done, and they've coordinated well with the principal, and I think the teachers understand that there are some classrooms that won't have tops on some of the new cabinets where the old units were, but that has also gone well. And the reason those 3 projects have gone well is they were well planned. That our construction manager, Epic, has done really great work, and I want to shout out to Tony Taludi, who's our on-the-ground project manager, and Kathy Tartaglia, who's in all the meetings that we attend and at all the facilities meetings, and all the people who work with them. Scott Downey and his team at Spiesel have done a very nice job and have been very responsive when things have come up in the field. And Dave Harding and our own staff, which has done great work. A lot of people are concerned about change orders. It is, if there are industry standards for new construction, it might be in the 1 to 1.5% of a project range, and for renovations, probably around 2%. Right now, we have 2 change orders. It's possible there will be a third. One is a credit for $1,600, thanks to an idea Dave had that saved us some money. And the other is a charge for $2,400. So through the whole summer, we have all the changes so far have totaled $800, which is not even 1/10 of a percent. So that is good, and do not get used to it. because as we go into many of these other facilities, which are 50 to 100 years old, they are going to find things, and we are going to need to address them, and that is in the budget. That's not coming out of thin air. We do have contingency funds, we have allowances for each project, and it is unlikely, bordering on impossible, that we won't get things done within the budget. But that is our next task at the next facilities committee meeting, is to present in one page, if at all possible, a summary of where we are financially, so that the board and the public can really understand exactly where we are. We also today got briefed on the next project that will go out for bid, and that is with respect to the door hardware and security upgrades at the 4 elementary schools, and I think just the 4 elementary schools. And there'll be new security vestibules at all those schools, new hardware, new doors, and some windows will be receiving this laminated film that makes them close to shatterproof. There is a schedule for all those things, but on advice of our professionals and the folks at the state who've consulted with us, we are not announcing what all of those things are, other than if you walk through, you'll see a lot of them, and I think be pleased. There will be a new guest management system in place when people start going into the school. It's Lobby Guard. Big shout out to hardworking Tim Charleston, who's a security officer for the district, in addition to the other things that he does. And there's going to be a sort of a soft rollout during the month of June, but this will mean that September, yes. Every single person, every adult, anybody who's not a student or has one of these, will check in that security vestibule. There will be a security officer or a member of the office staff. You will get your picture taken, you will get a temporary badge, and you will return that when you leave. So we're now working to conform with best practices and trying to strike a challenging balance between being a warm and welcoming community and having open schools, while also being as secure and prudent as possible. And Tim gave a nice presentation about that at an earlier board meeting. We had a scintillating discussion on drainage and parking. We're expanding our drainage capacity, which is a good thing. We learned that in addition to the water that comes from our own property, we also have water coming from surrounding town streets that just because of the grade and the fact that the way the storm sewers are set up, that the water is, we're capturing it rather than it being intercepted before it gets to us. Another good topic for us to have in our many conversations with the municipality. And so now, as we will be able to report at the end of September that all of these projects have hopefully been successfully completed. And if there was a third or a fourth change order, we'll be able to talk about that. And we will be then moving into the rest of the work, putting out bid packages. The Facilities Committee is reviewing every project at least twice. And it's the full board that will award the bids. And I think everybody on the board knows that the weekly summaries of the meetings with the referendum internal team are being circulated, as are photographs. Elizabeth Collier is posting some of that information on Facebook, and we hope to get more of it onto our website so the public can track this on a weekly basis, while some of us are tracking it on a daily basis. So go Facilities, come to our meetings. We're getting a lot done.
Thank you, Brian.
Wow.
That's school spirit. Okay, that's school spirit.
True.
Go, Brian.
That's right.
All right. How about we move on to finance, Bill?
Finance Committee met twice in August, on the 13th and again today. The meeting on the 13th was closed and was directed specifically to ongoing cost-saving efforts. The meeting on the 27th was open. Public's always welcome to attend those. We reviewed specific questions about our financial reports in the financial section of tonight's board agenda. The discussions we have on the financial reports in the financial section of the agenda permits the board to dig into the details on where we spend our money. This digging into the details informs us for the votes during the full board meetings such as tonight. As part of our meeting today, we dug into the travel reimbursement policy of our district, discussed the ongoing annual outside audit of our finances, discussed the details of the extraordinary aid provided by the state this year, discuss the proposals we have been receiving for a health insurance broker, with the proposals being received, finally, all of them, by tomorrow, August 28th. And then we discussed the DIPS program. And the question was, anybody know what the DIPS program is? And no one did, but it's the use of the pool at JW for recreational use. So that looks like that will probably move on to student achievement, I think. The next meeting will be on September 23rd, 2 p.m. here at Valley Road, and it's open, so please attend.
Thank you, Bill.
I have a question.
Question?
Do you know how long our current auditor has been performing audits for the district?
We talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah.
We did.
So do you want to talk about, I think it's for, we weren't sure how long, but it had been for a while, and so we were discussing, should we try someone else
Yeah.
who might give a different set of eyes?
Yeah, best practices sometimes is not hanging on to the same auditor
Right.
for a long time.
We were talking about that, you
Yeah.
know, maybe a 10 to 10 year. I'm not sure how long the auditors, they have a good reputation, I know that. I've never worked with them as my auditor, but I know the lead partner. But yes, a rotation periodically is advised.
Yep. Thank you, Michelle. Okay. Personnel, Debbie?
The Personnel Committee met August 20th. We discussed several staffing requests and staff changes for the 2019-2020 school year. We reviewed several new job descriptions. The Personnel Department has begun writing new personnel procedures. The committee reviewed first drafts for non-medical leave of absences, unbudgeted staff requests, and field trips. We're looking more closely at transportation, nurses, and scheduling of trips. Field trips are also being reviewed in conjunction with student achievement, and that's an ongoing area. Tonight, we will be approving the Danielson Policies and Procedures document, and this is an annual approval. Thanks.
Thank you. Policy, Greg and Jess?
So policy, we actually weren't able to meet in August for unforeseen circumstances, so we'll be meeting again in September. But on tonight's agenda, we do have all the policies that we discussed last time on first reading up for second reading. Is now a good time to talk about it, or do you want to talk about it? Sure. Okay, I'm good.
I'll just briefly review where we are with the two policies related to the vaping. There's the smoking and vaping prohibition and substance abuse policies, which are on for second reading. I just want to reiterate our thanks to Michelle Szymborski, the student assistance counselor for the district, and Jessica Baxter, the principal at PHS, who've worked really collaboratively with our policy committee so that the response that we're having to vaping in this district is consistent with our mission and strategic priorities on wellness and restorative practice. It's reflective of evidence-based knowledge, including the NJSBA model policies and public health resources on best practices. It's coordinated with local partners, including Corner House, the Department of Health, and it's been integrated with our school administration's revision of the student handbook codes of conduct. So that's kind of the framework, and I think that these policies are supportive of our priorities as a district and really fit well with the approach to restorative practice and health and well-being and knowing our students. And we're so fortunate to have Michelle Szymborski and Jessica really on board with us in figuring out this ongoing issue.
Thank you.
And similarly, for second reading, we have a policy on the visitor policy, policy 1250. And I wanted to thank, on behalf of the committee, Tim Charleston for all the hard work that he's been doing with us. So the policy up today aligns with the type of changes that he talked about in the previous meeting. He'll be talking about again, but I just also wanted to give everybody in the public a heads up that the training around lobby guard has already been taking place, and so we'll hear more about that later on, but Tim wanted to make sure that our policies aligned with the changes we're making, changes that reflect best practices in New Jersey and in the U.S. So our next meeting is at 8 a.m. on Friday, September 13th.
Thank you. Questions? Debbie, I think you're going to do student achievement. Thank you.
I do. The Student Achievement Committee met at JW on Wednesday, August 21st at 10 a.m. In open session, after a period of public comment, the committee approved the minutes of July 10th and agreed to put the M-SAN trip to Madison, Wisconsin on the agenda for full board approval this evening. Steve Cochran shared an update on kindergarten registration and noted that 11 sections are currently being planned for kindergarten this fall. Members of the public, please note that DLI registration is ongoing for kindergarten and first grade, and we welcome families to register their children for any school at any time. The board is discussing how data gathering, the number of sections and class size at each elementary school will be shared with the full board at the start of every school year. The committee and district staff adjourned into closed session and discussed the following topics. Angela Ciso-Stentz presented her dissertation research project, the 2020-2021 academic year calendar, expansion of homework-free weekends to include holidays such as Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and the Chinese New Year, sixth grade math at JW, pre-K curriculum and funding update, and enrichment program. The Student Achievement Committee will meet on September 9th, time still to be determined, and will discuss the enrichment program during open session at that time. The committee will also meet on Friday, September 20th at 11:30 a.m. The first hour of each of these meetings will be open, and members of the public are encouraged to attend. And both those meetings will be back here at Valley Road. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay. I think that takes us on to our public forum on agenda items. And I think we've got a list from the hallway. And I think the first person on the list is Mr. Montgomery. And if other people wish to speak after there's 3 people listed, then we can go in order.
Curmudgeon taxpayer, as always, I'm speaking in what the positive psychology people describe as the active destructive mode from a position of hopeful pessimism. There's grounds for hope in the agenda, which I thank you for posting in board docs. I liked the Martins-Sewell communications proposal because it mentions that much work will be done by interns, which I hope will be students. I further hope that that the district will search for other opportunities to exploit inexpensive child labor. I also liked the combining of administrative positions. I hope you are all on the lookout for work not only to rearrange but also to eliminate. This evening in the student representatives presentation, I was struck by the interest of the students in mental health. But am I the only one who finds it a little strange that the proposed method for improving mental health is to pile more activities on the students? All right, goals. Here comes the pessimism. First of all, you people are entirely too agreeable. There is too much consensus. You need some constructive disagreement. For the board goals, your business about evidence-based decision-making. Please remember that there is no evidence from the future. All the evidence is from the past. Anything you decide about what to do in the future is going to be based on some theory. For example, President Barron mentioned that you're considering 4 demographic models to use to project enrollments in the future. All 4 models are wrong. You need to plan for contingencies. You need to have reserves of capacity, just as in your construction projects, you need financial reserves, as was mentioned earlier. Oh, please cut me off if I run too long or start babbling incoherently or become insufficiently entertaining. Okay, communications. You plan on public workshops. These are ephemeral. If you post information on the website, it will be persistent, and the people who are too old and decrepit or have conflicts that keep them from getting to the workshops, or whose decrepitude keeps them from comprehending what is presented at the workshops, can then consult the persistent information and become more enlightened. You need to report progress publicly, and I applaud the facilities plan to report physical progress on the construction projects publicly. I hope progress towards other goals, like academic goals, is also going to be reported publicly. District goals. I was dismayed to see no mention of student agency. I think it is widely accepted that student agency is a resource to be exploited. It's good for the students. But didn't see it mentioned. Financial sustainability. Again, a plan is not an infallible prophecy. You need contingencies and you need alternatives. President Barron did mention earlier this evening something about alternatives in the facilities plan. Okay. You may not, facilities planning for best practices. You don't know what the best practices are going to be when you get into the service life of the facilities you're going to buy or expand. You need to support experimentation. For example, the spaces you are currently adding to the high school, I believe, are configured to support experimentation. But one of the advantages of furniture-centered rather than fixed wall-centered spaces is that they support reconfiguration for experimentation. Okay, superintendent's goals. My initial reaction was TLDR. That's Internetese for too long, didn't read. My second effort found, again, no mention of student agency or financial constraints. Okay. What happened to the wellness and stress initiatives from last year? They disappeared? Was it just a fad to be forgotten until next time a student craters spectacularly? And that's all for now. Thank you very much.
Mr.
I hope to
Montgomery.
get another shot at you at the end of the meeting.
Okay. Next up is Dr. Correll. And then it'll be Dr. Sharma, you're next after that.
Hi, Bob Correll. I teach science at the high school. First thing I want to talk about very quickly is one of the policies that's up for a second reading, the one on staff and service. I read through the policy. I love most of everything that's in there. And I want to thank Annie and Radula for stealing part of my thunder. I don't know how many of you all are aware of this, but we all have to do, I'm going to get the letters mixed up, GCN training this week. And Steve, how many years have we been doing this when you've been here?
Since I've been here, this is 6 years.
And every year, how much time are we given to do it? 2 hours?
2.
And do the number of trainings change each year? Does the time change each year?
Yes.
The time hasn't changed, but the number of trainings.
The amount of training.
That's part of my point.
Yeah.
We're given 2 hours. The suggested time on the website is over 3.5 hours. I tried the shortest one, which was 8 minutes, and diligently worked through it so I could complete it as quick as possible, and that one took me 10 minutes. So it should take me at least 4.5 hours to do it. And every one of the trainings is valuable. So I think we should be given adequate time to work on those trainings. Thank you. That's my first point. My second thing that I wanted to address was the sidebar agreement between the board and the PAA. On that agreement, it says, in addition, the base salaries of 4 current supervisors shall be increased by a total of $19,774 as outlined in Attachment A. When I go to Attachment A and I add up those 4 increases, I get $20,494. I don't know whose math is wrong, mine or yours. Okay, I'm just pointing that out. And then my final question is, can we get a number as to when this increase is put into place, what the % increase for the PAA will be for this calendar year, as opposed to what it was negotiated to? Can we get that at some point? Thank you. That's my question.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Sharma.
Thank you. I wish I could be as good a speaker as Mr. Montgomery, but I may not make you laugh, but you can laugh with me, or laugh at me at least. So anyhow, today I'd like to kind of bring you up to speed. What we did over a 2-week period from August 5th to August 16th. Before I get into the details, congratulations to Dr. Cochran and Board of Education for Princeton High School being judged as #1 school, so congratulations to that. I also like to congratulate you on sharing your goals for the coming year, and I'm sure Mr. Montgomery did a great job on highlighting issues with each one of those, but I won't dwell on those. But one thing I will talk about is something you guys talked about it really today is equity. I think that word came up from so many different perspectives, and that's what I like to focus on. And I won't get into the report that Marceline Dubois highlighted last year, and I think we understand what the problem is. But what I like to kind of talk about today is what we did. What we did was remarkable, and that's what I would like to share with you. For last few months, those who don't know, Witherspoon-Jackson Development Corporation, which I'm a board member, and Yana Moore is the president, and we have great board members on that. We had a program with Princeton High School that started in May, and once we first started talking about it, everybody said it's too late to have anything like that. Students are already preoccupied with other programs. But once I realized what it takes, somebody said, Dr. Sharma, are you ready to spend 30 to 35 hours a week? I said, that's nothing. I can spend 20 hours a day. So to me, having that kind of a equity education was ingrained in me. I was born in a small village in India. Here, the students go to high school with great, shoes and everything. I didn't have any shoes to go to school. I walked. And we didn't have any roads. We didn't even have electricity. I studied without electricity using lamps. So I knew what the value of equity in education meant. When my students in India, they went to bigger school, better schools, my parents decided, Surinder, if you want to study, you can study here in the village, which was at one time a great school, but has fallen on bad times. So out of 30 students in my class, 20 went to different schools and thinking they will do better. But my father was a philosopher. He said, I think don't waste 4 hours going back and forth, walking in bad weather and all that. If you can spend that 4 hours working at your own home under some good teachers, and the reason I'm bringing up that is skills. And skills, if you read to the scholars, anybody can learn skills if you have a good teacher and you have a student who has a good aptitude. I took that to my heart. I said, I'm going to adopt these kids with connection to Witherspoon Jackson Development Corporation and take into my wings and show them what we can really achieve. I have stories I wish I could share with you. A student from Trenton came to Princeton High School in December. If you ever want to read about the story about that family, it was published in New York Times in September 2018. Single mom trying to raise 3 kids. One of those kids was one of the students at summer camp. Well, makes you cry. The people lived in cars, didn't have a house, nobody supported them. Some lady decided, how come a mother who's trying to make a good living for theirs, I'm working hard to make a good life for their kids, can't have any break? So they talked to the New York Times, story got published, the family got moved to Princeton, living in have a apartment or a house to live in. And that student, did not know anything about it. Somehow or the other, I bonded with them. Right from the beginning, I was one of the mentors with Dr. Joy Barnes Johnson, wonderful teacher. My heart goes to her. I don't think we could have done without her, by the way. So I spent 2 weeks mentoring, working, to the point I told every student who wants to study after hours, after 3 o'clock, is welcome. I'll go pick them up, feed them, bring them home, and teach them and mentor them. And some of the students did that. Some of the time we would work until 9, 10 in the evening. Mm-hmm. One day we worked until midnight because a couple of days later we had the competition. Mm-hmm. And one of those students who came from Trenton, he came 3rd in the competition. That was very challenging. So to make a point that I was trying to say was, we have students, we have the equity issue, and thanks to Michelle Tuckponder and all of you realizing that we have an issue in Princeton High School, there's a big achievement gap, as you, Dr. Cochran, highlighted. Achieving equity for all students is your overarching goal. I applaud that. But I also like to kind of mention that I think, Debbie, you brought up the point there's no equity in our goals for the board. It doesn't have to be in the goals, but should be in the mission. And that should be like one single statement. And goals are like there. Goals are like objectives you're going to achieve in near term. But the mission is something is there. That's what you're really trying to do. And that should be there, just one line, and you can have the goals underneath. So that's one thing I like to add. The other thing which I like to kind of really share, which is very important, that we need to expand upon these programs. And I highlighted to, I think, to the president, when I see the budgets, there should be a line item. We can talk all we want. Witherspoon Jackson paid for the full 2 weeks of training, teachers, and for the material, free lunches, and paid money to the students, $250 for completing. Then we also gave awards at the end of the 2 weeks period for $500, $350, and $250, plus another $50. So students you had to see what they really realized. Some students, mothers, parents, grandmothers, sisters, brothers came, and it was a full house. And students who could not, and I know that, could not speak for 5 seconds about their project, spoke 3 minutes with good presentations, with good actually products that they actually developed, because that was their entrepreneurship idea. It was wonderful. The projects varied from building a new car with a new induction motor. I'm an aerospace engineer. This guy talking about heat pipes. I said, where did you learn all that? Talking about solar cells. Where did you learn all that? He said, I've been learning that from when I was a child. So there are students, when you give them the opportunity, they can really do wonders. What I'm really trying to make a point here is that, yes, thank you for everything what you did, but we need to do a lot more. This is just the beginning. There were a lot of things we didn't do right. We have lessons learned that I won't get into that at this forum, because that we will get inputs from everybody and share with you. But we need to expand upon that. And I'm looking for, Michelle, at your leadership, because you're in charge of the equity. But there are a lot of things we need to do to make it better in future. And not only just the Witherspoon Jackson Development Corporation, the students who are related to the Witherspoon Jackson area, but expand upon that. That means we need to bring other people, other organizations to help. And please, you can also help in this. And you did in terms of bringing the best teacher that you have, and my hat goes to her and Valerie and many other people. And also, I don't want to miss everybody from the Witherspoon Jackson neighborhood, and also all the people who helped us. And most importantly, we went to many businesses, local businesses. They opened their doors. They were so happy to meet us, greet us, and show them how they became successful entrepreneurs. So I think there are a lot of lessons that I wanted to kind of share, but that will be hopefully, if you give me a little bit more time next time, I will definitely like to do that. And there's some of them are great lessons learned. So again, thank you, and maybe next time I'll throw in a joke or so.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma.
But thank you again.
Thank you so much. And it's so important that we hear about how these
Yeah.
programs went. And this two-week
Yeah.
program was very exciting. And I
Yeah.
know you talked to me about it.
Yeah.
And what I would suggest also, given that we've got a lot of work to do and it's 10 o'clock, but in the future, if you put something in writing, if you want to write to all of us, we'd love to hear about it, what you want to tell us.
I will definitely. I wasn't actually planning to do that today because I was so busy, but then I realized I wanted to do it while it's still fresh in
Thank
my.
you. Yeah.
But trust me, we will be, sharing a lot more things.
Yes.
This is one of the ideas that one of the students created, and that's regarding equity. Equity in education equal to equal society, and that was his idea. And,
Great.
So anyhow, thank you again. Thank you for your
sharing.
time. Yes,
Thank you.
I will share all the lessons learned.
Is any
thank
other
you.
comments on an agenda item? Yes. Martha?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I signed up for the others, but.
Okay. And again, I'm
I know, it's
trying to, trying to do it three, but thank you.
All these things. So Martha Friend, teach at Littlebrook. I want to thank Dr. Sharma because he led right into one of the things that I was going to say, which is I think what Michelle brought up when we were talking about budget, that the budget decisions tells the story of a district. So agreed that equity can be woven through everything, but if you don't put your money where your mouth is and your choices. So thank you for saying that. I would also say one more thing that, Michelle, you said that equity is woven into the infrastructure, and you were kind of highlighting how important that is. Absolutely agree. Again, it's the follow through. It's not just money. So it's not just having equity leaders that we can kind of highlight, but give them a job to do, use that resource. If you're saying that we are going to implement restorative practices like K to 12, you need a whole year to train, or some time to train. One workshop isn't enough. So I assume that doesn't mean like teachers are going to be implementing based on one thing, or even building on what we've already done with responsive classroom, right? My understanding, limited from the fabulous workshop this summer, that was the one thing I could go to. Thank you, Annie. It's more than just a circle. So, which many of us do in elementary schools, at least in terms of responsive classroom, recognizing that every child known. I see from your face that was not your intent, that there's going to be serious training about restorative practices, which I hope. But oftentimes in this district, we throw out words. We say, now we have somebody who's going to do this job, but it's that deep, meaningful utilizing of these resources that I'm always pushing you on toward. Right, so we talked about implicit bias that we worked on last year. So then how do we assess that teachers are addressing their implicit bias, that it's kind of woven into the work that they're doing? This cultural responsive teaching, it sounds like we're going to hear more about that you said that there's some components. So how do we assess rather than just say we've kind of talked about it for a little bit? I think that's super important. I just have 3 more things. I apologize. And now come back over here because I see that Dave Harding is here. So the dumpsters at the elementary schools have been filled, as I'm sure you know, because the contract, I guess, in the summer is only 1 pickup in the summer, as opposed to 2, at least in the elementary schools during the week, 2 times a week. But that's always a problem. In August, teachers come back. I've been there pretty much all summer, learning how to be a 5th grade teacher, and it's just filled up. But also now that we won't have food waste pickup, our compost, unless there's some idea about sharing services with Princeton, if they're willing to partner with us, but Mayor Lempert said she hadn't heard about that yet, at least. We're going to have even more trash. So that's going to be a significant issue in our elementary schools. Sorry, just looking at my notes because so much was happening. Yeah, so I'll just keep coming back to this kind of recognition that talking the talk is great and all of us saying equity is woven into everything, but what is happening on the ground in the classrooms? And I think, Brian, you had talked about at the Student Achievement Committee that you were interested in assessments, something like that. You were asking for information on that, and I encourage you to include teachers in those conversations, and not just on a list that have showed up to a meeting, but really are active participants. Because you got a whole school of resources, not even just for the summer, because some of us can't attend summer things or participate in those, but we're there ready to partner, whether it's financial stewardship, anything. We're there. Anyway, that's me.
Thank you, Martha. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on agenda items? Oh, yes.
Yeah, I have a few quick comments.
Can you state your
Amy
name?
Perlmutter, Littlebrook, 5th grade. Very happy to have a partner teacher working with me this year in 5th grade. I want to thank the board for having the meeting last spring, which I think you called Board and Bagels. Whereas some bagels, well, you see, the board comes first. That was more important than the bagels. Where, we get to just communicate with the board about things that are on our minds. And I came here tonight because I wanted to be able to continue to keep that door open of that communication. So I just have a few things. When you're talking about priority-based budgeting, and then you'd also talk about bringing in communities when you're talking about the need for space in these schools, I think that might be something to think about, that when you're doing priority-based budgeting, you should really also allow for some reflection and comment from the community about things. I'm just thinking from a classroom standpoint, I don't really know the budget, but I know I'm given a budget and I spend an enormous amount of money every year on classroom supplies that in most other districts are supplied by parents. I don't know if that would be something that, you'd have to know. What would be the parent reaction if all of a sudden they found out they were buying the markers and the pencils and the scissors instead of the school district? And I don't know how much of an impact on the budget that is, but that's still something that perhaps would be on other types of supplies, like books that the kids could be reading, if I was doing it that way. I want to follow up what Martha said about the implicit bias training that has happened. But again, how do we assess that the staff really understands what that means? It's really hard work. It's deep digging. And we know that we still have a long way to go because we still make mistakes and we keep apologizing. And I think, one measure would be, well, how many times do we have to apologize in a year for making those kinds of errors where our bias is, obviously we haven't thought deeply enough about it. A little bit different, but I just want to make sure that it's clear. We often hear that we're getting kids ready for the real world. They are living in the real world. They are experiencing and interacting with each other. And anything that is done emotionally, socially, their academic, that's happening now. It's not like something that's being held off till they graduate from high school and hit the real world. So I just want to clarify that inclusion in classes of having our students that may have IEPs or may have speech or may have in what is considered the general ed population is not really just part of understanding that they're going to be engaging in that in the real world. It's part of understanding that all students, all people have value, and we can all learn from each other at any point. And that's really why one of the reasons we all need to be together. It's not just for the future, it's for now. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So,
Just wondered if Debbie wanted to mention the next thrilling
yeah, bagels on the
on
board.
board.
Debbie?
I do. So we're
Please.
going on the road with our bagels at the board, and we will be at Littlebrook for our first one. And not biased at all. I know.
Oh,
Thank you. I think it's Thursday, October 17th, and some more information will come out. And that will be open to the public. It really will. So, but we'll have a way to get them in. Don't worry. Don't worry. Morning. Yeah. Like 8:30 after drop-off. So all you guys in the back, I know you're Littlebrook parents. You guys will all be there. So yes, and
Thank
we're
you.
bringing our bagels too.
Thank you, Debbie, for organizing that. I think we're on item J, policies. It's 10:10. We can do this. Policies on second reading. I think we've had the explanation. Or Greg, did you want to say anything more about that?
Just that we resent out to the members of the board sort of a little bit of information about each of the policies that are up for second reading.
Okay. Can I have a motion? Brian, second? Jess?
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
I'm just really excited that we finally have a vaping policy because this week the CDC came out with a report. They've had one death that they think was linked to vaping. They have 193 lung injuries that they have no idea what they are. And in Texas, a 17-year-old boy whose lungs were completely blocked from vaping was on a ventilator for like 10 days. Luckily, he lived, but I'm really glad that we are, making a statement.
Thanks. Any further discussion? So resolved that that the board approve the policies below and request a copy to be included in the permanent minutes and made available to the district website. So all those in favor? That would be unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we're on K, personnel. Now, some of these are action items. So Mike, did you want to say anything in advance of this, or should we just go through it? Okay.
I don't think I need to say anything, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if they come up.
Okay, so the first item is the motion to approve sidebar agreement with the Princeton Administrators Association. Can I have a motion? Greg, second? Brian, any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say this has nothing to do with any of the people whose names are listed in part of this. To me, it's kind of the whole process of the way, with, for me right now with PAA and how we're looking at positions and looking at raises, but it has nothing to do with the people. To me, it's really just about the process, and I will be voting no on this.
Okay, so.
And that's the same thing for me. I mean, I know some of these people, and they are truly all-stars, and they're great, and I hate to vote against this, but I just feel like right now that we're short of money, we should use pay raises as an incentive, and I would like PAA to work with us to use pay raises in the way that they're supposed to be done as an incentive and a reward for good work rather than any other way.
Okay. Anything further comment? Can I have, so we had a motion, we've had discussion. All those in favor? So that's 5 in favor. Motion carries.
Can I say a word about?
Yes.
We just did something actually very extraordinary. I think Mr. Montgomery, others talked about consolidation of 2 positions, which are represented in part of this sidebar agreement, where we took a science supervision position and we combined it with the supervision of professional development and assessment. And I just want to say a word about the person who is taking on this new role. We had a chance to meet Mridula, to hear Mridula Bajaj talk about the passion that she has for professional development, which drew her to Princeton. We saw evidence of the elevation of professional development in the work that's been done not only in the Summer Institute but throughout the year. And yet she is also a gifted supervisor of science who has a master's in organic chemistry from the University of New Delhi, who taught throughout the world, came to Newark, was a supervisor of science in a magnet school in Newark, and then supervisor of science in Scotch Plains before coming to Princeton a year and a half ago. And we had an opening for science supervisor. We have the work that she's doing now. She's willing to take on both these roles for us. It's a remarkable challenge that I think a remarkable person can step up to. And I want to acknowledge her tonight and what she's doing. There is a substantial savings to the district of over $100,000, but we also get the benefit of a truly gifted administrator leading our science department and helping us with professional development and testing. So I just want to thank and acknowledge Marigela.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now we have item 2, motion to approve creation and dissolving of positions. Can I have a motion? Brian, thank you. Can I have a second? Jess? Any discussion? All those in favor? Got 6, unanimous. And then we have item 3, motion to approve job descriptions. Can I have a motion? Brian, I think a second. Bill, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous, 6. Passed, motion passed. Item 4, personnel actions. This is the general personnel actions that we're approving. And can I have a motion, please? Michelle, second. Bill, any discussion? I just want to give a shout out to Mike Volpe. This agenda that you put together for us today, I was very appreciative. You were it's a new way of doing things. It's very clear what the board is being asked to consider and why. And you have put a lot more clarity and transparency into the whole agenda. And when I went through it for the first time, I was just really happy to see that. So thank you for improving our process and transparency. We really appreciate the time you took. So all those in favor of item 4, personnel actions? That's 6. Motion passes, unanimous. And then we come to some consent items. And on the consent items, I'm going to read the title, and we will just move through them rather quickly. If anyone wants to stop me and ask a question or make a comment, please do so. But we have, for the public to know that we, in advance, have asked questions and have talked about many of these things amongst ourselves. So we do have some background on these things. So item 5, motion to approve anti-bullying coordinator. Item 6, motion to approve Danielson observation model and associated procedure for the 2019-20 school year. Next item is L1, educational consulting, Due East Educational Equity Collaborative. Item 2, revision, annual memberships, 2019-20 Tri-State Consortium. Next item, item 3, grant acceptance, Witherspoon Jackson Development Corporation. Next item is item 4, MSAN Student Conference 2019. Comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if we could.
That's separated.
Separated, yes.
Oh, that's separate.
That's already separated.
So that's an action item. So can I have a motion on the MSAN Student Conference? Michelle, second. Jess, any discussion? All those in favor? That's
Right, you
And
abstain.
I need to abstain.
5 in favor, 1 abstention. Thank you. Motion passed. Next item is M.
Wait, did you say 5?
Yes, that was 5.
It should be 6, if there's 7 of us.
Oh, it was 6. So 6 in favor, 1
Yeah, I got
abstention. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're leaving yourself out.
Yeah, it's true. I've been doing that for, I think, a while. Okay. I'm tired. M1, professional consulting services, 2019-20 consent. And that is the list of N items. And again, we appreciate this disclosure. Very clear. Item 2, professional services school physicians, 19-20.
That's N2.
N2.
M.
yeah.
M.
M.
I'm sorry.
M and Mary. M3, school nursing plan, 19-20. M4, commission for the blind. M5, special education independent educational evaluations. M6, revised professional educational services, 18-19. M7, settlement agreement. M8, educational placement of special ed pupils, 2019-20. 9, educational placement of special educational pupils, 2019-20. And then that brings us to N, which are the financial reports. N1, it's a consent. And N2 is going to be an action item.
Correct.
Can I have a motion? This is for the approval of the communications consultant. Greg, can I have a second? Michelle? Any discussion? All those in favor? That would be 6. And 1.
1 no.
1 no. Motion passes. Item, is this O? Item N3, the YWCA Aftercare Program Facility Use Agreement. And number 4, the YMCA Aftercare Program Facility Use Agreement, 2019-20. And item 5, Hipster Software Subscription. Item 6, renewal of single sign-in solution, ClassLink. Item 7, tuition for students, children of staff, 2019-20. Item 8, joint transportation agreement with Lawrence Township. Item 9, non-public security aid initiative. Item 10, non-public technology aid initiative. Item 11, purchase of security camera upgrades. Item 12, authorization for change orders. Yes, yes, sure.
This actually came up at Facilities Committee twice, and so I just wanted to provide a brief context and background. This is for situations with the referendum in terms of something happening that requires immediate decision, and that there's not enough time to go to the board. And so the context behind that is if a contractor finds something, a situation that's so immediate, whether it's because it's a threat to the health of children and staff, or because it's a threat that it'll involve ongoing costs that will escalate. There's a contractor knocks into something and there's a threat of a partial building collapse, something like that, where you don't have time to get to the full board. This is an authorization that was requested by our professionals that we can go for at the behest of the business administrator to the facilities committee, which would then take a look at it. And if a majority of the facilities committee agrees, our professionals could go ahead and do a change order right away. And that's subject to the full board ratifying that at the next subsequent board meeting. So this is something that will be only used in cases that require immediate attention, but it's something that's fairly standard among districts across the state. As Brian has talked about, we already have contingencies and allowances, but this is just an added sort of authorization that would require our professionals to agree on this, our business administrator, our director of plant and facilities, our superintendent, and a majority of the facilities committee with the full board then ratifying it later on. So that's the context behind that.
Thank you, Greg. Okay. N13, change order EACM Corporation. N14, formal bids, renewal refuse removal roll-off containers. N15, bid proposal 3-1920, rejection of organic waste removal services for the Princeton Public Schools. Do you want to say anything about that? The rejection of the organic waste removal service? It looks like that bid came in
It
high.
came in really high.
Yeah.
It was like $90,000, yeah.
Right,
We
I just
paid
want
30 before,
just
so,
want to emphasize
yeah.
that one. Item 16, acceptance of donation, Community Park School PTO. I'll just want to say thank you for that. That's obviously a very generous donation of $6,337.50 to purchase 25 Chromebooks for the Community Park Elementary School. We acknowledge and offer our appreciation and thanks to the Community Park PTO for this generous donation. Thank you. Item 17, travel and related expenses. Item 19, there must be an 18. Is there an 18?
18, fire drills.
Item, okay. The next item is
Let me
fire and
see.
evacuation drills. And then we come to the consent vote. And can I have a motion? Bill, a second. Michelle, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the consent approval? That would be 6, unanimous. 7, unanimous. Passed.
Consent agenda passes.
I don't see anyone myself tonight. Okay. Yeah, that brings us, it's like 4 in the morning where I am. Public comment on open topics. Is there any further public comment? Mr. Montgomery. And we'll try to keep it to 3 minutes if possible. Thank you. Yeah.
Rod Montgomery from the New Patterson Board. Again, hopeful pessimism, right? Okay. Goals. You've got a lot of goals. You've got the strategic plan from the PPS Vision website where it was formulated initially. You've got the goals listed on the website, I think at least 2 places, and you've got them in board docs where you just readopted them as part of the, well, no, sorry, not yet. But you got them somewhere in board docs where you adopted them formally. Then you have the annual goals that you were talking about today. Are these coordinated? Does anybody coordinate these? I mentioned last time the pile of PDFs from your initial strategic planning exercise. The one that I harp on is the one about AP alternatives. Isn't it time to just declare that done? You considered an alternative, the Scarsdale Advanced Topics Model. You said, no, it won't work for us, won't be worth trying. We're going to continue with just APs. Why not just say, declare victory and withdraw? Is that pile of PDFs what you mean by the strategic action plan that was mentioned in the context of the presentation on the professional development summer program? I vaguely remember that pile of PDFs being referred to as the strategic action plan sometime back when it was being formulated. Okay, so strategic planning is one way of formulating strategy. I just remind you that it's not the only way, and sometimes it's not the best way. Sometimes it's a counterproductive way. And if you want to learn more about that, consult Henry Mintzberg, business school professor. Last item, inspired by Ms. Tuck-Ponder. talking about inclusion, and let's talk about student agency. Seems to me that one way to exploit student agency in pursuit of inclusion or in an inclusive way is through study groups, which consist of students studying something together. I searched the Princeton High School Handbook and the Princeton High School Program of Studies for study groups. Zilch, nothing, nada, not mentioned. I searched the website. I got one hit in the very brief page for the Ideas Center. On that page it says, the Ideas Center provides study groups to prepare for midterms and finals. So according to this district, study groups are for cramming for exams, period. Is that what you really want to limit study groups to be for? Thank you for your attention, and thank you for your hard work for Princeton students.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Any further comments? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn? Brian? Second, Jess? All in favor? I believe it's unanimous. I'll make-